I mean, I had an incredibly traumatic childhood, right? And I got orphaned at 12 years old. I got basically boarding schools and all sorts of things since I was 5. And then orphaned at 12, where my mum and dad kept my brother and sister and sent me off to an orphanage because my mum didn't like me. And which, so when people don't like me, it's not really that painful for me, because my mum didn't like me.
Anybody that says about a percentage increase is a sign of amateurish knowledge to me. Because if you're going on there saying, oh, we'll increase your panel output by 20%, or we'll increase it by 40%, we'll increase it by 60%, you actually have no idea how much you're going to increase it by. You've probably mimicked a number from another website, or because you want it to sound good on a sales pitch, you're going to put a number out there to justify your cost.
So the answer is the ultimate answer that you want is solar gain. That's the question, right? Can we mathematically say, if you clean your panels every 6 months, you'll make $1,000 in solar gain sold to your grid or used by your property, and it will charge you $500 for you to get $1,000. That would be the ultimate pitch.
What's the one thing that Perry Tait thinks that we should all be talking about, but we're not? So I would like to welcome everyone to the latest ISCA podcast. I'm very pleased to welcome onto the podcast this week Perry Tait from Reach It. So Perry, welcome.
That was brief. Welcome to me. Welcome to you. Thank you for making the time, because I was running a little late. Yeah,
that's okay. No problem whatsoever. So I'm in Las Vegas. It is 8:40 p.m. here. Where are you, Perry, and what's the time?
I'm in heaven, Phuket, Thailand, and it's 9:40 a.m. here tomorrow. And I've got news for you, Steve. Tomorrow is amazing.
Okay, good. Well, I'm looking forward to it already. That's good. I read some stat recently where you can be born in one part of America and be born in a different part of America, and actually the person that's born behind is ahead. Something weird like that.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, there's some crazy time zone stuff that goes on across this planet of ours. So, but welcome to the podcast. I think it's important to know for our audience that you and I have never had a conversation with each other, right? We exchanged we've exchanged in total 12 to 15 messages across the last 72 hours. We've never spoken to each other. I know of you. I think that you know of me. So I'm really enthralled and fascinated to see where this conversation is going to go. So I thought to begin with, we could just get a potted history of what it is that you do, Perry, and why you do what you do.
Oh, that's a great question. By the way, I was going to troll you on your mustache, but it's gone.
It's temporarily unavailable. Temporarily unavailable.
Me and my son spent 10 minutes yesterday working out a whole line of questions for you to be able to share your story, but we might get to it.
We'll get to that eventually.
Let's get to the interesting stuff. Look, I was a window cleaner. My background before that was civil engineering. Then I moved in. So basically, quantifications, design, civil is road, right? Road and traffic, road signs, traffic management, roundabouts, car parks, that kind of stuff. That's where my boss was in, and I was his draftsman. So I had to learn everything about civil engineering because we were a small firm. And then that got kind of a little bit boring and a little bit lonely for me. So I moved into sales, which led me to professional sales, and I spent a lot of my life in professional sales. I became a single dad, and I needed a career. I was a national sales manager for a cleaning franchise, so I sold over 250 cleaning franchises and lawn mowing franchises in Australia, VIP Home Services, VIP. And then when I was a single dad, I had to become Mr. Mum, as I call it, and so VIP was getting all these leads for window cleaning, but we didn't have a window cleaning franchise. So I talked to the boss and said, hey, can you give me the leads for the window cleaning? I'll start a window cleaning business. I can work from home and I'll be the state sales manager. So I did the New South Wales leads for franchises. And I could work from home, work the hours, take the kids to training in the morning, training after school, training at night, go and buy groceries, clean the house, all that stuff from home, and run a little family, So that got me into window cleaning. And then I go, I'm going back 2000, maybe, 2000, something like that, 2002, something like that. And then I was looking at these other guys doing roof cleaning and wall washing back then, exterior cladding washing and all that, and the carpet cleaning guys, and all of the irregular services, because we sold regular services. Home cleaning is once a week, somebody comes and they make $50 an hour. Once every 2 weeks, somebody comes and mows your lawns and they make $50 an hour. But they can set up a route and they can fill the route and they can scale. But window cleaning was not regular. And all these other guys are making $200, $300, $400, $500 an hour, and I'm pushing $60 an hour. Good job is $100 an hour. And then I'm looking around and every window cleaner is the same, and I'm going, it's inefficient, right? Yeah. It's not me, it's inefficient. And then I looked at the history of the tools, and like, for example, Ettore squeegee rubber is, 90 years old, never changed. I've met the guy whose dad made the original Ettore squeegee rubber in the factory that made it for Ettore, and learned a lot about rubber from him. But the brass squeegee, the handle, the boar's hairbrush is kind of gone. But I saw somebody on Facebook using it yesterday, and I just go, it's the tools. And because my brain is a problem-solving brain, I got into that. I kind of cut down a pole. I was importing some Extel poles from Denmark at the time, and I started selling them and making my own pure water systems, which were sacrilegious because we were using TDS 50 as the base mark for spot-free window cleaning, going back to 2006, 7, right? Yeah. So everybody's going, "Gotta have less than 10," and I'm going, "Do I?" Because I confront everything, which makes you a little bit of a contentious character if you confront everything. Don't know if you know that.
Never encountered it, Perry. I'm afraid never encountered it.
So then I got this opportunity to go to China with an Austrian company called ecotherm.com, selling solar thermal. So there's solar PV and there's solar thermal. Solar thermal is the preheating of water. There's an amazing thing. If you heat water from a low temperature to a medium temperature, you get way more solar gain than PV can ever deliver, like 90% solar gain. So and it was lifetime of the building guarantee, the product, patents all over the world for heat exchange technology, a really amazing company. And so I went to China on my own coin with a Chinese guy, and then we got a big sale, $1 million, and I meant to get my installment of my commission, and he says, "No, I'll pay you a salary." And I go, "No, I'm not a salary kind of guy." At the time, I'd made a baby. That's the best way to say that.
Yes, yes.
My little boy now, who's 15, Ollie, who's amazing, right, was not intentional at the time, and but very intentional from the moment that he's made. And so then I'm kind of with Harrison. He's 17 years old. I've got no job. He's got no job. I've got a baby coming, and I said, okay, I've got all these ideas of how to make window cleaning tools that are better and faster. So let's do the Berenstain Bear. I don't know if you know those books, the Berenstain Bears. Dad teaches Dad Bear teaches the little bear basically how not to do everything. He thinks he's showing him how to do it, but everything shows him how not to do it. All right. And I said, we'll either be the Berenstain Bears or we'll be successful, but we're in it together till we win or lose. But I went back to Australia, sold absolutely everything, not 1 cubic meter of stuff left, and said, we're going to burn the bridges behind us. There's nothing forward, right? There's only forward. Sorry, there's nothing behind us, right? There's no bridges to go. The old thing about the soldiers, if you want to go home and see your wife and kids again, you got to win, So that's what we did, and we started Reach It with. I only had $6,000 left. I was really up against the wall, and so we started from a little apartment on the 22nd floor of a building in Shanghai, with Harrison as the assembly guy and me making phone calls and saying, I used to sell you 5 poles, right? I can sell you one that does the work of 5, right? Like that, And it started like that. And then I realized that the water fed pole came with the brush, and it was like basically an integral component at that time, and nobody had ever taken them apart and said, well, what the pole is juxtaposed against the ladder. If you can't reach the glass, you use a ladder. So let's separate the pole and say the pole replaces the ladder, and let's look at the brush, because the brush is what's cleaning the glass, and that's where your efficiency is going to come from. And then we came up with constructor brush, which was way longer and way harder a journey than I ever imagined, but we perfected it when we switched it to radial brush, which is the radial rocker, became radial light, became radial ultralight. All of that as we just cut it down to be smaller, and we worked out how to mass produce it and stuff like that. So it was kind of like that journey. And then we had solar panels on the roof of our factory, and the guy was a 1,000 talent Californian professor at a university on solar, got Chinese origin, and got pulled back to China under the 1,000 talent program, which is, America has its, I can't remember what it's called, but something 41 or something, and where they bring in talent. But China has their own return of talent and new talent and stuff like that. So he had all the meters on solar panels and the different arrays and different meters and everything like that. So I said, can I get on the roof? And fortunately, we had a sign writing factory, a sign plastic manufacturing plant on the ground floor, and their exhaust was plastic microfibers. So those panels just got dirty regularly, and so we could get up there at lunchtime when they turned that machine off, because otherwise we were going to kill ourselves. And we could clean solar panels. And then I started looking at, what's the best way to get dirt off panels as well. So that's how we got into the solar rocker. Yeah, became born from that. Yeah, how's that?
That's a very comprehensive answer. I expected nothing less. So let's condense some of what you've told us down into smaller bite-sized chunks then. So when you look back at your professional life, what was the first moment that you realized, I don't think like most of the people in this industry? That's quite apparent just in what you've just said. So can you grind that down into a moment when you thought, I'm not thinking of it like anybody else?
Well, it's not like anybody else. There are guys in the industry who've got mechanical problem-solving brains, a lot of them, and they basically DIY their own solutions, So it's the person, I think it's the person who just has an incredible optimism to, it can be better. There must be a faster way. There must be a more efficient way. There must be a more ergonomic way. And the fact that, I can feel a pain in my body and confront that pain and say, why am I getting a pain there and not and why am I getting it on my left side, not on my right side? Why am I getting it at my lower back, not at my shoulder? So it's that, I have a never-ending question-asking brain that doesn't accept anybody's answer. I confront everything.
Where does that come from, Perry? Does that go back to when you were a child? Because I have a never-ending question brain as well. I can probably pinpoint a couple of events in my childhood that either shaped that, exacerbated that, whatever you think. Can you trace that thought process back early into life?
I had an incredibly traumatic childhood, right? And I got orphaned at 12 years old. I got basically boarding schools and all sorts of things since I was 5. And then orphaned at 12, where my mum and dad kept my brother and sister and sent me off to an orphanage because my mum didn't like me. And which, so when people don't like me, it's not really that painful for me, because my mum didn't like me.
Yeah. I know the same feeling, but for different reasons. But yeah, I understand the concept is that it's no problem for the people not to like you when you've had a deep trauma in your past that's more elevated than a friendship or a business associate. So it's like, okay, you don't like me. You're probably representing 5% of people that haven't liked me in the past on a singular relationship. So it's easy
and the pain level of you not liking me is nothing like what I went through as a child who had to deal with that.
Yeah, correct.
And so
that
it was
shaped your thinking process to where you are today.
That I'm on my own. I'm on my own. I have to solve my own problems. I have to sort things out. I have to get I have to develop a character. I have to develop solutions. There's no mummy's money, daddy's money. There's no mummy's support, daddy's support. There's no brother support, sister support. There's just I'm a lone ranger. This is my journey. I've got to do it.
Was there anyone early in your life that came along to inspire you or made you determined to prove something, or is that just something you had as a result of the experience?
I think every son has an innate and irrevocable or not able to not be there desire to prove to his father that he is successful or good. And I didn't like my father because of what happened to me. And but I still, till I'm 45, I'm still ringing him up saying, hey, I just got this, or I just did that. And so I could tell I'm still
you're still in contact.
Later in life I kind of went back to them, and tried to make them the mum and dad that I thought they should be, or whatever, you know what I mean? Because like honor your father and mother is a principle that you should sort of try your very best to do. So I kind of honored them even though I didn't really like them.
It's interesting. There's quite a lot of similarity here. There are differences, but there's quite a lot of similarity. I as I said earlier, right at the start, we've not spoken to each other, but I think we understand each other right from the get-go. And the more I'm talking to you, the more I think it's because of shared background and shared experience that's kind of shaped the people that we are. So you've built a brand in an industry where people can be loyal, they can be skeptical, they can be brutally opinionated. How have you handled that criticism over the years?
Sometimes not well. I have made a video that everybody rang me and said, take that down, that's not who you are, because I was close to tears. Yeah, I was close to tears. They broke me over one issue because I'd done my absolute every best I could, and it wasn't enough for them, And so I think there's still that crab. Even you see a strong guy, he's still a crab. You turn him over and he's still soft on the underside, But as I get older and more experience and all that, I start saying, well, who is it? What have they done? Like challenge the source is the saying, right? So somebody has an opinion, or somebody has an article, or somebody has a science report, or then you challenge the source and say, who's behind it? Who are you? What's your social proof? What's your credibility? What's the risks that you've taken? Well, how have you added value? It's easy to criticize me, but have you added value to the community, or do you just have a following of people who are addicted to negativity, and that's your contribution to the community? Or are you an inspiration and you design and you take the risk, or do you just criticize or do you copy? You know what I mean? There's just, and those are different characters that fit into every community. So there's room for everybody in every community, and then as a brand, we attract a certain persona, and other brands attract different persona, and we don't expect those personas to come across to our brand, So you kind of compartmentalize it as much as you can, so you can just see it in boxes rather than,
So 12 is I know an amount, let's say, about human psychology and social studies. 12 is the wrong age to be ousted from parents. It's easier to be ousted from parents when you're 2 or when you're 20, but 12 is the wrong age.
Yeah. It's the puberty, the change of life, where you don't even know who you are, even if you've got a stable environment,
And the people you're looking to most, interesting enough, the people you're looking to most, even though you're trying to find your own way at 12, are your parents. So when you were orphaned and you were, as you said, sent away, and your parents kept your siblings, I imagine that created a great sense of loss inside of you. Did you feel like a lost little boy at that stage?
So I got fostered we were born Anglican, but I got fostered through Catholic Social Services into a Catholic family that had fostered 52 children, taken two on full time. I was the second one, and they were dairy farmers, right? Oh, I got goosebumps. So they were dairy farmers, and she said, like, when I got to her, I was incredibly angry. I was shoplifting and setting fire to buildings in the park, and I was really out of control kid. And so I hadn't got my pieces together then, I can tell you. And then my foster mum said, Perry, you can lose your temper anytime you want, as long as you count to 10 first, right? Then you can blow up if you need to, right? So she built a fuse, right?
Yeah.
That's what she gave me.
That's clever.
Yeah, really clever. And what he did, because I'm 12 and we're dairy farming, like what he did is gave me responsibility. So he said, okay, go and plow that field, right? Taught me how to drive the tractor, taught me how the plow worked, taught me how to take a line. And then he would say, okay, go and set the vat up for the milking, and then go and set up the suction cups, and then one day he wants to go out for a party and he says, okay, milk the cows, right? We had a herd of 80 dairy cows. And so then I have to do absolutely everything, get the dog, whistle the dog, bring the cows up. I had to do it all start to finish, wash down all the shit and everything that is part of dairy farming, and clean the yard and everything ready for the night milking. So what I think he gave me was, incredible amount of, there's no woe is me time. It's let's get busy, get doing, drive the truck. He's on the back cutting the hay, but the hay bales, feeding in winter. I'm the one driving the truck. Then it's his turn to drive, my turn to feed. You just kept me busy with responsibility, not as a subordinate, right? So I really have a very strong belief that children are only children by a social construct, that they're really young adults, pre-pubescent, post-pubescent, with were moments of realization and maturity that come from time alive,
Yeah.
And when you have your first child and stuff like that, there's all sorts of things that change in your mentality, that are kind of preset to change. So then I got recruited by the Navy because my father's cousin was Sir Gordon Tait, Full Admiral, Second Sea Lord of the Royal Navy, and he was on the ship that got the first Enigma machine in World War II.
Okay.
The first Enigma. He wasn't the captain; he was a second lieutenant, but he's a really famous guy. And so the Navy wanted me, and I was 15, so I joined the Navy at 15, and then I got, even though I was known to be a rebellious, not rebel, but rebellious.
Yeah.
There's still all the disciplines and the camaraderie, that comes with that, the military thing. Then, because they recruited me at 15, I was only 6 foot tall, and then I grew to be what I am now, 6'6" ish. And so then when I got back to New Zealand from Australia, because I got seconded to the Australian Navy, then they said you need to leave because they've only got 4 frigates. We would call them destroyer escorts. The Americans would call them. And they said you're going to be a compo case because there's nowhere for you to even stand up in a ship, without bending your neck. So they said you better go and be a civilian and enjoy life. So that was that 3-year chapter, which was also very that kind of consolidated me. But at the end of that, I've been in institutions, boarding schools, and Navy for several years with all the controls that go with that. And then I go, okay, I've got no job. I went down to the Huskisson RSL in Jervis Bay in Australia and played the pokies for a week. Was my payout.
Yeah. So
I didn't really have it together.
No. So I found myself, and I need to be careful how I explain this so as not to offend. I found myself twice already this week, and this is the third time I'm going to try and explain this, is through things I'm going through currently, actually. And whenever I've had traumas in my life, I bury myself in work. And when you visit the gates of Auschwitz, as you can go and do as a tourist these days, above the gates, it says in the iron, it says work will set you free, which was ironic because obviously the Nazis were taking the Jews in to work and die, which is the tragic part, obviously, of the tale. But the concept I've found personally, work will set you free, is true, is that when I have been hardest hit, if I've buried myself in work, and there was a period of time in my life, and I've never really had the opportunity on a podcast to sort of explain that, and maybe one day I will, but there was a period of time in my life when I experienced total loss in a way that many other people will never experience total loss. And I lost family and social network and everything else, but I walked the planet literally on my own. And
Hmm.
work was the only thing that I had left, and work it was that set me free.
Yep.
So it's very interesting that I'm hearing you echo those thoughts, really, is that when you were hardest hit, you realized that work was the thing that was going to light your fire again and get you out of
Yep.
the hole that you were in. And I think
Yep.
many of our viewers will feel the same way. We have a very much a male dominant
Yep.
audience.
Yep.
The vast majority will be business owners and entrepreneurs. We are not the most balanced of men on the planet.
No.
We struggle with our
If
own.
balance was the target, or is it
Yes,
conformism,
yeah.
which is
So
their target for us, and ours is not that target.
yeah, correct. And so we view the world, I always think, 5 degrees off center, and that will
Hmm.
always play the part in the life of an entrepreneur. But I do believe that work will set people free. I think it's an excellent release. I think that it's a way to be creative. I think it's a way to ground yourself, to find yourself, and to express yourself. And so for me, work is what I always turn to at times when I'm hardest hit. And maybe that's destructive in some ways, but so far in my life, it seemed overall, at least, to have served me very well. So I guess that brings me on to another question I'm thinking of. Really, is that what version of Perry Tait did you have to kill off to become the version you are now?
Well, I'm 64, so there's a chunk of versions. The
Yeah,
critical
interesting.
thing is that there are versions.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I always try and remind people to try and remember all those versions, because I have one son, who's Harrison, who's 33 and runs our factory and general manager and runs the businesses and everything like that. And he sometimes compares himself to me, and I say, don't compare yourself to me. You look at me when I was 33. Compare
yeah,
yourself to that guy, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so as you age and you want to be a mentor to your children or to young people in an industry or whatever, it's really try and lock in some points about who you are now and what
mm,
age you are now, that you can, because a lot of it gets erased and can be triggered. Obviously, the book of life, if it's real, it was read to you, on your entrance to heaven. I think that the hard drive, which has got to be better than DDR RAM, of every single thing that has honestly happened to you, truth, is written inside you and able to be recalled, sometimes with hypnotherapy or something, because we've got
yes,
a pretty good way of compartmentalizing shit that really happened that's horrible,
yes, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
locking it away so it doesn't affect us too much. But I think that so step one, try and remember what you're like as a child. When you have a child, you'll be able to identify the stages and the evolutions that you went through as you matured, and then don't try and put an old head on a young body too soon. You can let them know what your next goal is. I know when Harrison was 21, 22, 23, 23, I said, okay, you can join the leadership team in the company. But I said the real click whir will happen when you're 26, because
mm,
everybody has a big change of character at maturity at 26. And I said, and the final one will happen somewhere between 33 and 36, where you
yeah,
actually don't care, mind, or become more apathetic about how other people feel about you. So you no longer have this need to be seen to look good. You get it, that you're just going to be you and you're going to push forward. And so I said, I can tell him in advance of the stages that I'm trying to mentor him towards, but recognize that he's not at the age which that would normally occur. There are a few freak people that get stuff way earlier, but they're
mm,
freak people, not
yeah,
the norm. So, and sure enough, Harrison got to 26, matured up, and then got to 33 and said, I need to take the reins. I want to run this thing, and that's exactly, as per the click word of a maturing male with
yes, yes,
opportunity. Yeah.
yeah. So
So
we're
I
going
had
to
many characters through through those decades. Yeah.
yeah. Which one do you feel did you most damage?
Oh, I thought you were going to say the most best. Um, You know, the thing about damage is that the it's the damage that makes you amazing.
Oh yeah,
Right? So,
yeah.
you know,
If used correctly, if used correctly.
yeah. So that's, I always say that if I wasn't rescued by being orphaned, you know, I would have been in jail for sure, or a criminal group leader,
Yeah,
or I'd have started a religion,
yeah,
to self-serve myself, you know,
yeah.
so those were my thoughts, of which way I can go to get through life, and then um, so the most painful is losing everything,
Mm.
but the benefit of losing everything is you realize nothing matters, because you have your character, and you actually lose your character. If you lose everything, you lose your character as well. You do things that are against your own integrity, against your own morals, against your own values, against your own beliefs, against your own everything, just to survive. And then
Yeah.
you have to say, who am I? Well, this is not who I am, but I'm doing this stuff, so therefore I am this person. So this is not who I want to be. Then I have to go back and apologize to people and pay people, and you have to go and make good all that stuff that you did wrong while you were trying to survive,
And
and
the reborn version of yourself is probably your truer self, because
yes, yes, yes,
the first version of you is shaped by the country you're born in, the religion you're born into, the parents that you had, or the lack of parents that you had. So when you experience total loss and you bounce back, that is your authentic self, because you're then playing life according to your own rules with your own self-grown and self-imposed personality, and you have shed the skin, the false skin of what other people
great,
wanted you to be, and you have
great
become
metaphor.
your true self. And I find
Yeah.
for me, that's why I had to go through a phase of life where it was kind of imposed on me. I had to shed everything, but then I am the authentic version, love him or hate him, that I am today. And so I'm unapologetically me. And so I think that by pure chance, you're on the other side of the world. You've moved from where you were to one part of the world. I've moved from where I was to another part of the world. But somehow we've ended up in the same tribe, and the
Yeah.
same tribe. We're probably overlapping in two tribes: the tribe of entrepreneurialism, and the tribe more recently for both of our careers is in solar. So let's switch the topic then into solar. How did you kind of fall into that? I fell into it. I'm guessing you fell into it as well. It wasn't a plan that you think 5 years from now I'm going
No,
to be in solar.
I think we saw the window cleaners taking up when solar panel cleaning, and I'm always like, the whole roof cleaning industry. I'm itching to find somebody who thinks that when roofs can be treated with gutter butter faster. Can I make a
Mm.
tool that cleans that faster? And we're working with company in America with kitchen exhaust cleaning tools. So I'm always looking for something that can be more efficient. And then I need somebody who actually understands the inefficiency and is frustrated by it, in order for me to be able to put my talent to work to confront every single aspect of a tool on its surface, to say,
Yeah.
how can I make that more efficient, and then ask all the questions, and then make prototypes and send the prototypes out. And to everybody's disappointment, it takes 2 or 3 years to achieve that, some maybe even longer if we can't crack it. But I won't say it's there until it's there, right? So, and everybody who's got an idea or has done a DIY version of something, then they do get frustrated with that process when you take it on.
Yeah.
But so solar panel cleaning, window cleaners were getting into solar panels. We had a product called Deep Frame Rocker, which was for commercial window cleaning, where you didn't care too much about the corners, right? It was pretty much up, down, straight pull, the equivalent of straight pull squeegee cleaning. Then
Yeah.
basically it's an up down brush, not trying to clean out the corners. And
Okay.
like residential's everything has to be clean, but commercial, the building manager knows tomorrow the spiders will be back and start building nests. They're not
Yeah.
too worried about the corners.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so we had the deep frame rocker, and then we thought, okay, well, let's have a look at that on the glass. And then I realized, excuse the language, but I do come from down under, where we're like you guys, right? The Brits, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
just so much part of our culture. The funniest thing is my 15-year-old boy, when he got to his 13th birthday, on his 13th birthday, he says, "Hey, Dad, I'm 13 today. Does that mean I can say F word now?" And I go, "Hell yeah, right? You're
Yeah.
13, son."
Welcome to adulthood.
Welcome to Aussie Kiwi, language
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah.
That said, Steve, I was 18 through to 28, maybe 10, 12 years heavily in a Pentecostal religion. And I had erased all swear words, all cuss words, all a lot of dysfunctional thinking. Even I was a youth pastor and all sorts of things. I'd really cleaned up a whole vocabulary and persona. It was a persona, and then when I
I emphasize I've never spoken to you, but I was born into the Jehovah's Witnesses, and so from the age of pre-birth, I was being played tapes to do with the Bible, learning Bible stories while I'm still inside my mother's stomach, and then all the way through to the age of 34. And from the age of 34 to 36, I was actually actively trying to get back in, and for various reasons they were having none of it. So yeah, I mean, I'm 46 now, so only mentally have I been out of a religious framework for 10 years. So you mentioned religion is that no cuss words, very strict moral code, high control, being dictated to by the book and by the people who explain that book, so it's really interesting you mentioned that. So please continue on.
No, it's an amazing framework to have as part of your bank of algorithms of thought. That's how I kind of put it.
Very, very different way to live. Very different way to live.
Yes. Yes, and the Pentecostal church that we were belonged to was genuinely had the characteristics of a cult, similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. Not that everybody in the Jehovah's Witnesses are, because 50% of our industry is Jehovah's Witness. That it's not that they're members of a cult, but there are characteristics of when you get excommunicated, how you have to conform, what you're allowed to challenge and what you're not allowed to challenge, are characteristics like that. So if I can put it politely, because I've got an enormous amount of respect for everybody who has a faith.
Yeah.
Because it does, for the best part, you will lead a better life with a faith than the people who have never had that in their which is my son's, right? My son, my little guy's got a little bit of Buddhism in his upbringing, and a strong knowledge of it. And Harrison's got nothing. He's come atheistic. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist, And so I work with him, completely happily and finally, with my faith-based, personas and thought processes. This is a really interesting thought.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure I've articulated any of this before.
It's a whole podcast all of its own. That we could talk for hours.
Yeah, let's not go there. Okay, so can you go back to your question, because I've digressed myself out off the question.
Yeah, so it was just kind of, we found ourselves overlapping in terms of entrepreneurialism and in the solar industry, and I guess the core question was how you found yourself to fall into that industry. But you've explained it by the window cleaners.
Oh, that's right. And then I was gonna use a swear word, and then I digressed into protecting the audience, and then nearly dug myself into a hole, or did. So there's a saying in which we say is, you push shit uphill. You're pushing shit uphill. That kind of saying, and in window cleaning, that's what we do. We push all the dirt up the glass, and we wait for it to come down with gravity in the rinse water. Yeah. And when you get a solar panel at different pitches, right, that doesn't work. It's almost like, if you think about gold panning, you just slush around, and all the heavy stuff goes to the bottom. So when you push it uphill, and then you're waiting for it to rinse, and then you push it uphill, and you're waiting for it to rinse, right? Then all the dirt is going back down. So the number of strokes to get the dirt off the panel, is significantly more. Or you're trying to push it all off the top, but then you run the risk of running the brush over the top, and then all of a sudden you've lost 5 minutes trying to recover your brush wherever it is, right? So I thought I confronted this principle and said, well, what if it's got to be way easier to pull everything off the bottom of the panel rather than push everything up to the top of the panel. So we kind of turn the deep frame rocker around. It's got 8 jets on one side and 26 on the other. And so we said we use the 8 for a surfactant and we use the 26 for the flush. And then if you pull faster than the effect of gravity at the pitch, then you're basically turbulating the water. So you're keeping all the dirt in suspension. Like, by the way, like dirt does not go into solution. Like the TDS of the water is in solution and dirt is in suspension, right? So we're trying to keep it in suspension by turbulating, making a little wave in front of the bottom of the brush and pulling all the dirt off the glass. And then you reduce the number of strokes significantly just by effectively turning a brush around it, but it still needs water on the top in order to slide up the panel. Otherwise your surface friction is too much.
Yeah. So who I know is going to enjoy listening to this when we put it out is Trevor Shamblin from Shamblin Softwash. So he's a friend of mine in California. I don't know if you're familiar with Trevor or not, but
I know the name. I think I know him.
Yeah. He's the most knowledgeable water guy that I've come across. He understands the sciences of what it is that you're talking about really well. So what do you feel, Perry, is the main sales pitch of a solar cleaner? And I know you feel it's wrong because that was one of the very few things we've touched on via text. What do you think is the main sales pitch of a solar cleaner, and why do you think that pitch is incorrect?
Well, the main pitch is you need to clean your panels because it's maintenance, right? You need to maintain your panels. And I'm not. It's not binary that kind of is right and wrong, because if you're, for example, if you see solar panels in the UK where it's overcast all the time and you're in a built-up area, or the farmland is green as it is, and so when the wind blows, it blows across the top of the grass. It doesn't lift the topsoil up because the topsoil's damp anyway because it's always raining there, So what a solar panel cleaning in the UK pitch would be is probably legitimately maintenance, because there's nothing particularly getting them particularly dirty compared to other parts of the world. If you
I would take you to task over that if you saw the dairy farms and the poultry farms. And
dairy farms. I sent you a video from my friend in Australia who's cleaning dairy farms.
As a dairy farm guy, you will appreciate what we're up against.
Because what he's saying is that the debris that's on the solar panels from there is from the silos, from the feed silos. Right. So and you can get that from industrial areas, hydrocarbons, from being roadside or in the middle of an industrial park. So the question always comes back to saying, and we do the same as window cleaning, that in order to get efficiency, you have to decide, okay, how big is what I'm cleaning? What's the best tool to clean that size? And then what is it you're trying to take off the surface? And is the surface glass or is it treated glass? So are we cleaning glass, or are we cleaning a surface treatment on the glass,
like the ARC coating?
The ARC, anti-reflective coating, because it was just like a nano treatment, but critical to the performance of the solar panel. So if, for example, we clean solar panels in Dubai, and in Dubai, the basically the wind blows and it's all desert, right? So the sand blows in, but it's a sticky sand, and then they get dew at night, and then they get 50 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, something like that in the day, bright sun, no clouds. And it's like our 3D printer in our factories. We've got filament printers and we've got a laser sinter printer, right? So laser sinter, the bar goes across and puts this tiny sprinkle of nylon powder, right? Super fine powder, and lays it down, and then it comes back with the laser and welds it, and then it drops another layer and welds it, and drops another layer and welds it. Well, that's exactly what's happening in a lot of places where it's clay dust or sand with some stickiness, where they basically get cooked layers and layers and layers of microfine dust. It's not like when a Habib comes through, that then, okay, the panel's dirty because everything settles on the panel. This is cooked on layer by layer by layer by layer, and welded together. So then you think, okay, what can take that off, and then, the predominant lack. Well, I've only become aware of it myself to be able to articulate it. But what a lot of window cleaning is and solar panel cleaning is actually waiting for water to soften soften, to soak into the debris,
Yeah.
and then we're going over it with a brush, thinking we're cleaning, but actually we're just taking off 0.01 millimeters, or 1,000th of an inch each stroke, and then the water goes in a little bit further, and we take off another tiny little bit and tiny little bit until we get to the glass. So, so the question is, can we just get underneath that and just cut it off so we get straight to the glass in a single stroke or two strokes, something like that? So that's kind of like the pathway of the tools that we've developed, is to say, how do we get to the glass straight away rather than waiting for water to soften stuff? And so the answer is, the ultimate answer that you want is solar gain. That's the question, right? Can we mathematically say, if you clean your panels every 6 months, you'll make $1,000 in solar gain, sold to your grid or used by your property, and it will charge you $500 for you to get $1,000. That would be the ultimate pitch, right?
Yes.
But that pitch is probably possible geographically in certain areas, but not viable as an industry-wide pitch.
So I'll interrupt there and just give you my take on everything that you've just said. That concept of layering dirt on a solar panel, you can see if you go to Utah. If you go to Utah and you go to Monument Valley, you have these vast landscapes of just flat sand, and then you have these massive structures, rock in essence. And actually the rock was actually the shallowest point in the topographical past. What happened was the water fell into that little valley, and it soaked in, and then the dust came and it dried on top. And what happened was all the land was even, and gradually these lower points, the valleys, became the highest points because they got wet and they accumulated layers of silt over the course of time. The other parts then became dry and they blew away. And you can replicate that. I'm going to Utah in a few months, and I'm going to show people. We're going on a road trip, and I'm going to replicate that. You can have some sand on the Utah soil. You can tip water into one spot, and you can let it sink in. You can tip a bit more and let it sink in, tip a bit more and let it sink in. And then if you sweep away the sand around the outside of the wet, you get what is in effect the rock formation in Monument Valley.
Super cool.
Yeah, so you can condense millions of years of time into a few seconds on the floor in Utah and show people how those rock formations came. And that's the same principle as to how the dust is accumulating in places like Dubai. As it gets dry, it gets wet, it gets dry, it gets wet, and then that accumulates over time. So you're building up these micro layers. And then in terms of what you're saying about solar gain, this is maybe going to be a borderline offensive, very deeply unpopular thing I'm about to say. But when as I do, because I'm a very interesting guy, visit other people's solar panel cleaning websites to see how they are pitching their service, anybody that says about a percentage increase is a sign of amateurish knowledge to me. Because if you're going on there saying, oh, we'll increase your panel output by 20%, or we'll increase it by 40%, we'll increase it by 60%, you actually have no idea how much you're going to increase it by. You've probably mimicked a number from another website, or because you want it to sound good on a sales pitch. As I have in the past, and I don't very often do it anymore because I realize that I'll always win the debate, I ask people, how can you justify the maths behind the calculation that you claim on your website? And no one can. You say to people, how are you going to bring a 40% increase? How can you prove you're going to bring me that as a client of yours? They have no idea how the mathematical equations work. Yeah. So solar gain is one of those things. I mentioned this briefly on the messages we've exchanged. It's something that I've spent 6 years of my career trying to fathom, because I understand maths to a relatively good degree. If I can crack that equation, who can argue with maths, right?
Right. Exactly.
If I need to send, as Elon does, Elon sends a rocket off and he's figured out the maths on how to catch it. So that's the ultimate set of maths in his field. The ultimate set of maths in terms of solar cleaning is, how can I guarantee I'll bring this person X amount of gain? And the reality is, Perry, it can't be done. You can't do it. There's too many variables, and people, it makes me laugh because people go and they say, oh, well, I read the inverter reading, I took a photo of that, I went up there, I cleaned the panels, and I came back down, I took another photo of the inverter reading, it was 80% up, so I bought an 80% gain. It's like, No, you didn't. You were
It was
there at 8
cloudy when
a.m.
you took the first photo.
Well, it doesn't even need to be cloudy. This is the argument. In
Right.
places like California, people in California, they argue with me and they're like, well, it was clear sunshine when I started, and it was clear sunshine when I finished. Yes, okay. The sun was higher in the sky. The azimuth
Yeah.
of the sun
Yes.
had changed during the
Yes.
course of the clean as well. So
Yeah.
you were this high with the sun when you started, you were that high when you finished. The sun was here when you started and it was there when you finished. Of course it's going to go up. It doesn't even
Yeah.
need you to clean the solar
No,
panels.
not to clean, right? Yeah, it was going
Yeah.
to go up anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And what you don't hear of are people who will start cleaning an array at 3 p.m. They photograph the inverter, they do the clean, they finish as it's going dark, they photograph the
Yeah.
inverter, and their solar panel
Six
clean has
o'clock.
a negative effect, right? So they've cleaned the
Yeah.
solar panels, and the panels are producing 40% less than when they started.
Yeah.
There ain't
Yeah.
nobody advertising those figures, Perry, on their website. So
No.
it's a very, very, very difficult set of maths to do, and people don't understand the complexity of the maths that's behind that equation. And so
Yeah.
for me, a solar gain is not the question we should all try to be answering. I've managed to reverse that whole mathematical equation around over what is now took me 9 years in total to do this whole process, and I'll reverse the maths around. And so now, instead of talking to people about solar gain and actually plucking figures out of the air because of that, I can talk to them about solar loss and be very accurate. So I'm like, well, I can't tell you how much you'll gain as a result of cleaning, but I can tell you pretty accurately what you're going to lose if you don't clean. And that is the maths everybody should be trying to figure out.
I also agree with you, because my final position, if I was selling solar cleaning, which I'm not, is, and because we're always trying to get it to a way that the buyer doesn't want the math and they don't want anything. They just want to know, is it different? Is it real?
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to this point and I go, okay, well, a solar panel is black. Black is the absorption of all light, right? So that's why they're black, because their intention is to absorb all energy that they can, and they're getting designed better and better to absorb more. And white is a reflection of all light, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see white. So if, when you look at your panels, you see black, right, that means it's a solar panel.
Mm-hmm.
If you see white, what you're seeing is your solar energy that your panel wants being reflected to your eye.
Mm-hmm.
As so you, if you can see anything other than black, then some of your energy that you think you're getting is actually being bounced off the
Mm-hmm.
whatever's on the surface of the panel, and you could, in that tiny little angle that you're there, you're getting gray or white. And if you move around there and up and above and all that, you're going to see white. So that's your solar gain. So by cleaning it, the intention is that we just get your panel back to black so that it can absorb light.
Yeah.
Then again, when we don't need to talk about numbers, but it's obvious that they're going to get a solar gain.
Yeah, and
or not have a solar loss.
Well, that's the whole reason we have an industry. The only reason we have an
Yes.
industry, we're not cleaning panels for aesthetic reasons like we do windows. We're cleaning panels for a monetary increase. But
Yes.
measuring that monetary increase in terms of a percentage figure in a paragraph on a sales website on your web pages is not the way forward to do it. And as I say, it's a clear sign to me that this person is an amateur. They don't understand the service that they're offering.
Right.
That's sad, but true in my opinion. So,
well, they're not the first and not the last to run mythical claims to achieve their outcome.
No, absolutely not. And people have done it in all sorts of industries for hundreds of years, probably. And so we can date that back as far as we want, and there will always be people either misunderstand or deliberately mislead other people. I just don't want to be associated with any of that. I would rather bat straight
by the way,
and give people the news they don't want.
Yeah. And by the way, the window cleaning equivalent of that is TDS 10 or less, is spot-free water. Right? The TDS of a water is a converted parts per million calculation of the conductivity of the water, which measures the total the passage of of electricity between two terminals for the 9-volt battery, or no, there's two little LR44s or whatever.
Yeah.
And that somehow below 10 is spot free. But again, if you go back to the white reflexor light and black absorbsor light, I was in Mongolia 4 or 5 weeks ago. We had DI tanks sent there, and he couldn't buy the DI resin, and so I cleaned a whole facade of a restaurant, which was filthy. It's such a dusty country.
Yeah. We
it was
sell
totally filthy
to Mongolia. Yeah, the Ulaanbaatar airport is covered with our bird deterrents that I sell through.
Oh, brilliant!
One of my companies. Yeah,
brilliant. So we cleaned the windows with tap water to demonstrate the technique, and then I went to the window, and from every angle I could look at, it was spot free, and the TDS of Ulaanbaatar is 180.
Yeah.
So that 180 TDS is spot free in Ulaanbaatar from the water source that was servicing that part of Ulaanbaatar that I was in, because many cities have got multiple water sources. So is there a spot?
Yeah, and
there is a spot.
You mentioned something that's sort of well. Let's talk about two myths. Okay, so we'll deal with the myth that you're dealing with, and then we'll come on to a second one. Is the whole ultra pure water thing? Does every solar panel need to be clean with ultra pure water?
No.
The answer is no, it doesn't actually. There are a lot of people who swear by that book, but it doesn't. The reality is it doesn't need to be cleaned with 0 TDS or less than 10 TDS. You're not invalidating any warranty if you're going out cleaning, even with tap water. There are occasions when tap water will be perfect for the job that you're looking to do as a solar panel cleaner. So if there's anything that's going to spark debate over what we've just been speaking about for the last hour, it's probably going to be that.
Right, but ironically, both of us agree to it as a prima facie position before we even have the conversation.
Yeah.
So
100%.
So
100%.
who benefits from the myth is the resellers.
Yeah, and I would also venture to say that of the, let's say, 100 people in a room, we are the two defiers of that theory. Have the other 98 studied it to the same extent that you and I have? That's another question that's open for debate. And then another, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but does DI water, does 000 TDS meter water conduct electricity?
No, if you're in a confined environment. Well,
Correct.
not a measurable amount. Like ultra pure water has no minerals in it, so there's nothing for the electricity to use as a bounce neuronic pathway.
So the ions have been taken out of the water. That's why it is called deionized water. There are no ions in that water. So there's nowhere within the molecular structure of water for the electricity to travel between to create current. This is where one of the common myths comes in, is people are like, well, I'm not at risk of electrocution while I'm cleaning solar panels because I'm using deionized water, and deionized water doesn't conduct electricity.
Oh, God.
Sir, as soon as that water and that brush head touches that glass, it's reionizing, okay?
Yes.
It's when it's ultra pure.
Even air.
Water. Yes.
Even air.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's incredibly thirsty. I always say it's a little bit like me. It just wants to be dirty. You know, I'm getting old now, so I'm getting older.
But that's all it
so
craves.
I don't want to be so dirty no more. But
it's designed to absorb dirt. That's all it's designed to do. So when you get it to that state, it will quickly reionize. You have deionized in your cleaning process, in your filtration process.
Yes, it's deionized until it hits the glass.
It becomes reionized. Therefore, when it is reionized and ions get back into the water, you have that conductive pathway to make it an electrifiable substance again. So that's and
in addition to that, I would also add the other contention that some companies claim that deionized water assists you in agitation, and that is also a myth. The fact that it's reionizing has got zero tangible, noticeable, measurable effect on the agitation of a dirty to clean surface. Zero. And I tested that on a super oxidized. In America, they have the plastic, I call them plastic houses, so they're kind of vinyl clad, you know. And then when they soft wash them with bleach, the bleach is, as you know, is like one of the worst things on the world, but also one of the greatest things on the world, right? Is that it breaks down the plasticizers, and so you get this really fine oxidization on the plastic. So if deionized water would assist in cleaning, then you should be able to pour a slow running pathway of deionized water on a oxidized surface, right? And catch that water at the bottom and measure the TDS, and it should have increased because that's its contribution. But I did that, over a 6 foot length, and catch the water, and it's still like effectively zero. So it's not doing anything to your cleaning process. Your cleaning process is agitation, either mechanical or chemical, but it's not, bleach will help, or a surfactant will help, or whatever, but not deionized water, not 0 parts per billion.
Yes. Because a million wasn't enough, right? So because a million wasn't enough, we had to go to measure it per billion. So let's we've already briefly touched on this electrification of water. I don't know the reach-it range. I don't know your products. I know you sell some water-fed poles. I mean, you've got a water-fed pole behind you there. Do you know how conductive your poles may or may not be in the solar cleaning world, or in the overhead power line world? Do you know what the voltage resistance is of poles?
I mean, look, carbon fiber is, if I simplify it, a carbon fiber pole is 40% carbon, 60% resin. So the carbon is like one of the best conductors of electricity. So anywhere where you've got black, is highly conductive. And so then if you go to non-conductive, then there are materials that are just not conductive, is Kevlar and fiberglass. Fiberglass is heavier, Kevlar is lighter. So I don't have it on this pole here. Is you can see in there is black. It's got a polyurethane coating on it. The polyurethane's not conductive, but we would normally put shock stop on this. It's downstairs. Shock stop is Kevlar, so it's lightweight. And all of our poles, all of our professional poles, have a Kevlar handle as a shock stop. And what I can tell you in this conversation is that we had a guy holding shock stop who hit high voltage power lines in Canada last year, and it saved his life. However, because he's holding shock stop, let's say this was shock stop, right? Then the electricity, the high voltage arced from the carbon fiber to his forearm. And burned him. The electricity went down his ankle. It burned a line all the way down the left side of his body. So shock stop will stop a shock. Our shock stop's hypo tested to 10,000 volts for 3 minutes, right? But
10,000 volts AC or DC?
Oh, do I know? I'd have to go to ChatGPT and say, what's a hypo test, right? It's HIPOT.
Because
that's the standard test.
10,000 volts AC is different to 10,000 volts DC. So I was just wondering which it was.
Yeah. Well, you could type away at ChatGPT and say, what's a hypo test? While I'm talking. So, but we didn't do that for years because I go, the answer is obvious because it's Kevlar, and Kevlar doesn't conduct electricity, doesn't break down with electricity. Fiberglass, all of the electrical service industries and the linesmen and everybody use fiberglass for the same reason, right? You can get it. You can get a sample tested. You can get a certificate made on the one piece that you sent to the laboratory. It doesn't mean that's what you got from the factory. If somebody wanted to bodgy it, but you can't. Nobody would bodgy. You know, bodgy is a word.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't think it's an American word. I think probably a British word. But
if
you wanted to make a cheaper product, there's no reason to make a cheaper product than fiberglass because fiberglass is so cheap. There's pretty much nothing you can make it cheaper with. So Kevlar, you could go back to fiberglass to make it cheaper, but then it becomes heavier. So it's really obvious that you've got fiberglass. But it still is a shock stop or a protector or whatever brand model we want to put on it for what its function is. So having a 10,000 volt 3 minute hypo test is just formalizes the material characteristic of Kevlar versus carbon fiber. But the one which I really want to point out, Steve, if I can, is that when somebody says they have a Kevlar pole and it's a gold fleck in a black, with a gold and black fleck, the gold is Kevlar, the black is carbon.
Black is carbon,
So if you got somebody saying you've got a Kevlar pole and it's gold and black, it is conductive all the way to your hands. The Kevlar has zero effect on that. And I've got a guy in New Zealand. I had an electrician in New Zealand who I had a sample of it. We're in a pole manufacturing factory there, and we put it in the pre-preg the sheet of the material and showed the electricity going through it. In the carbon part and not going through the Kevlar part, right?
A Kevlar carbon fiber mix is, for me, and everybody listening, please listen to the word because I'm using it very carefully, is a safer, with the R on the end, a safer water-fed pole when it comes to overhead lines and solar panel cleaning, in my opinion, than anything containing carbon. Carbon is conductive, but if you can have a Kevlar carbon fiber mix, it's a safer pole. Now, I use the word safer,
but this is not mix in the same. This is not mixed like crisscross, like the 3K finish. It has to be 100% carbon, 100% Kevlar somewhere, and 100% carbon fiber. But if you crisscross carbon fiber and Kevlar, which is another way of having a mix, that is zero safer, because the electricity will come down the carbon fiber strands and get you.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, is that even in that scenario, though, and we're going to switch topics slightly now onto PPE, is if the pole is wet, makes no odds what it's made of, right? Because that water is still conductive down the outside of the pole. So if you're working in rainy conditions, or if you've got a dodgy John Guest fitting at the top of your pole, peeing out water all over the place, then your pole is all of a sudden conductive down to your hands anyway. So you could have I don't believe there's such a thing yet, but you could have a 100% non-conductive water-fed pole, but it's still get electrocuted on the outside via the water. So can you envisage, and do you think it should already?
By the way, that's not that water running down the outside of the pole should be designed out by the manufacturer. Like you would never see a reach it brush with a reach it pole and water running down anywhere, because I've been there when I was 15, 20 years ago. But at that point, it's negligence from his side. He hasn't. He needs to replace that part.
And even if you coat the outside of a water-fed pole in a non-conductive substance, as we know, blokes throw their poles in and out of vans, they scratch them, they bash them.
They scratch it and all that. Because you get that shiny. If you get a shiny surface, that's polyurethane that's non-conductive. Doesn't mean that it won't pass a hypo test.
No,
it'll destroy with 10,000 volts. That'll burn.
It's going to melt off.
So that's
So with PPE, then, this is a discussion. Do you know Mike Draper from Expert Safety Services?
Yes.
So this is a discussion that Mike and I have had numerous times, and we can see changes coming in the window cleaning industry, but we think that they will be filtered down from the solar cleaning industry down into the window cleaning industry. This whole discussion around PPE, non-conductive class 0 gloves, gauntlet gloves as well, non-conductive boots. So let's start with those two pieces of equipment first. We'll start first of all with the gloves. Do you think that if someone is working within X amount of feet, and I'm not going to put a number on it intentionally, if someone is working within X amount of feet of an overhead line, they should automatically be donning these class 0 or class 1 or class 2, depending on what the voltage is they need to protect themselves from, insulated gloves for window cleaning?
My answer is no, because I don't think they should be working within X amount of feet of a high voltage line.
We would agree that that is the correct answer.
So if he has done his risk assessment and looked up and seen a risk, he shouldn't be thinking that he can protect himself from that risk by working with a water-fed pole near that risk. End of story. Education. Not sales. Let's sell a whole lot of PPE for something for taking a risk that shouldn't be taken.
And I 100% agree. How do we shrink that level down to solar panel cleaning? Because on a commercial system in the US and the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in Australia. Well, it is the same in Australia. It's 1,000 volts DC. that you're going to be coming up against as a max voltage. In the newest style of solar farms, you're working with 1500 volts DC. So you can get away with class 0 gloves on a commercial building or on a residential building. But when you switch onto a utility scale, you need to up your level of protection to a class 1. So if it's not deemed appropriate for a window cleaner to be working within a zone where they can meet electricity, where do we shrink that down for solar panel cleaners? Because it's unavoidable that you are going to be making contact potentially with live electrical equipment.
Well, I would suggest that in the West. So firstly, the surface that we're cleaning is glass, and the glass is in a frame, and the frame's butt up, and all of the high voltage risk areas are located in a proper installation, center panel under the panel. So for our water to get to their inverter or their connector, which is faulty and unearthed, because if it's earthed, it's earthed already. So you have to have a bad installation where the electricity is not earthed, and somehow there's some fault in the system such that the cabling has degraded, which would normally you'd think UV, but it's underneath, so it's not getting UV. And then so then it's a cracked panel. So then it's I would suggest that it's the education of, again, the same thing as risk assessment of the surfaces, and then you see something which shows that there is a risk and you avoid that risk. So it's the educated, like I say to my kids, when they're learning to drive, I go, being able to steer your car or your motorbike down the road is not driving. Driving is about being able to see an accident that's about to happen and being able to get yourself in a different position such that that accident doesn't affect you, or you don't have it, or whatever.
Steering is the movement of a vehicle, which is very different to driving.
Yes, and being able to see 100 meters ahead, a whole lot of people put their brake lights on, or on a motorbike, you see somebody turns their head. There's a high indication that the fact that they've turned their head is that they will make a move in that in the direction, whether they put their blinker on or not. I mean, we've driven in Vietnam, which I lived in Vietnam for a year, and that is crazy.
A wild place,
Wow, it's just expect the. I mean, that is expect the unexpected on the road, right? Yeah. So again, I'm such a safety guy, but I really believe that education and risk assessment is, and then having assessed risk is to avoid any risk by not going near risk, because risk is chance times consequence. Doesn't matter what the chance is, the consequence. If the consequence is death, then the risk is death. Right. Mm-hmm. So you could have the guys climbing ladders. They go out, I've climbed ladders for 20 years. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So your chance is 0.00001, right, that you're going to have a fall from a ladder. However, the consequence is death. So potential, right? So then your risk is 0.00001 times death equals death, right? Yeah. So now we know that what the consequence is. The most important thing is being able to identify the risk and then avoid the risk 100% if the risk is potentially, especially if the risk is potentially death, right? Yeah. So PPEing, it's contentious, I know, but PPEing to manage a risk that is there, or you should know is there, or you could know if you were educated to be able to assess and identify the risk, then PPE is like kind of saying, okay, well, I've just reduced my risk from 0.00001 to 0.00001. But the consequence is still potentially death. Yeah. Because PPE in itself is not, it doesn't take it to the risk to zero, the chance to zero. If the PPE took the chance to zero, I'd say use PPE to avoid the risk. Because it does avoid the risk.
So I've been electrocuted twice while I've been solar panel cleaning. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the second one, because I was actually wearing what was at that time my full suite of PPE. My full suite of PPE at that time was Class 0 gloves because I was cleaning residential property, and it was dielectric boots. Okay, 10,000 volts resistance in the leg and 33,000 volts resistance in the sole. So I thought it was safe as houses, Perry.
Yep.
And then it was one of those rare hot days in the UK when the sun was actually out, and I was halfway through cleaning the panels from ground level because the pitch of the roof allowed me to do that, and the pressure of the brush head allowed me to do that. And the customer came out and said, "It's hot. Do you want a glass of water?" I was like, "Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much." So they bring me out a glass of water. I put my water-fed pole down on the right-hand side of me. Okay. The brush head was not touching any of the solar panels, but the water was still, I didn't turn my pump off. So the water was still spraying down onto the panels. So I've got a glass of water in this hand. I've still got my Class 0 gloves on, okay? And I rested my elbow onto my carbon fiber pole, and I got a DC shock through my arm, and it burned and blackened all of my elbow just there, okay?
No way.
Yeah, and that was through, and the water was just hitting the glass of the panels. Now, what I actually thought I need to find out why I've just been electrocuted here, and because enough about solar, that's why I went about this the right way. I had a cherry picker van on site at that time, so I drove the cherry picker van around, looked at all the panels. Turns out the panels were not earthed properly, or they weren't grounded, as the Americans will call it, grounded properly. So the panels themselves were live.
The frames were live.
Correct. So the frames were live. So as the water was touching the frame, it was becoming electrified. The water traveled back up through the water on the panel, back up the jet of water into my pole, and traveled down my pole and into my arm. Okay. So now, admittedly, I had a faulty connector on that, which is why I mentioned about the faulty connector, and the outside of my pole was wet as well. So, but that's a real scenario, right? Is the panels are not installed as they should be installed. My pole was an aged pole. It was a carbon fiber pole. When I picked my pole up, when I had my gloves on, I wasn't getting an electrocution at all. But because I touched my skin onto my pole, it blackened all of mine, and it hurt as well. It hurt, let me tell you, and it hurts as well. So that's the second time I was electrocuted. Off the back of that, we've actually now changed our internal processes so that everybody who's going out cleaning panels within my companies now, they are wearing Class 0 gloves, they're wearing the dielectric boots, but they're also wearing FR clothing. They're wearing flash-resistant clothing or arc-resistant clothing. Because if I would have had a long-sleeved arc-resistant top on, I would have been able to rest my arm on that pole and still not been shocked. So from my own personal experience, and I've run this past other people within the solar industry who understand the flow of electricity very well, PPE absolutely plays a protective role for solar panels.
Okay.
If you're wearing enough of it, and this is the crucial bit, I thought I was wearing enough. I was teaching this safety stuff for a living, Perry, and I still got zapped. And I realized where there's bare skin and I bare skin touch something, that I was still able to get electrocuted. And so PPE does serve its purpose, but in order for it to give you full protection, you need full protection. Another thing that we do, interestingly, is when we look underneath the solar panels, because we check the cabling underneath to make sure the MC4s are not resting on the roof, etc., we used to just put our faces down and look underneath. But I watched the video of DC electricity arc to someone's nose. Okay. So then I was thinking, well, if I got zapped by having my skin there, if there's enough flow of electricity at 1500 volts through these solar panels, and I'm putting my face right by the panel there, it can arc onto my face. So now when we do a visual inspection, we put on an arc resistant, flash resistant mask. We go down, we take our photo, and we come back up and we take that off. But for that instance, when we're that close to live DC electricity, and the point is, we won't know it's going to arc to our face until it arcs to our face. It's unseen, that risk. So we are wearing flash resistant masks every time we do an under panel inspection now. So what I thought was great, and what I thought was protecting myself and my staff, has changed over the course of time because I became better educated. That's as simple as I can put it, really.
So my thinking is, and I fully accept what you said, and I fully accept the correction of what I said from what I said, right? But or however is a better word. However, so I'm renovating my son's house, and there's a yellow pipe, which means electricity, that's close to the surface, running under the ground to some pump, I think, somewhere from a previous water storage tank or something. And so I asked the electrician, can you tell me if this is live or not, this yellow pipe, the cable inside this yellow pipe, because I want to dig it up with my digger.
Yeah.
And so he gets the little $5
test meter
and puts it in. So my question would be this: why can we not attach a test meter to a water-fed pole, and for the solar panel cleaner, he goes up and hits the frame and sees if the frame is live? Because he's not. I totally accept whatever's underneath is a completely different story. But for the solar panel cleaner, he's only dealing with the glass. If there's no broken panels, there's and the panels are butting, then you go, okay, well, the risk is that it's not grounded or not earthed, right? And then the frames will be live. So how do we test before he starts work, as part of his risk assessment, that the frames are not live? And then we develop a little 3D print. Somebody could do it straight off this thing, right? Is they 3D print a little holder, get a bright light version of that thing, or have a cable that comes down to a meter, which he holds, puts on his pole and just goes, okay, is it live? As another solution.
Which is fine in principle, and you're dealing with one yellow boxed cable in your house scenario, but when you're up on a roof and you've got 16,000 panels you're cleaning, you will need to touch 16,000 panels with that meter and get a reading on each one, because you can have 12 panels in a row that are sound and you can have one that isn't. And if that one happens to be 7 rows deep away from where you're stuck, that's a very difficult thing to do. So
okay, no, you would know more than me, because if the panels are buttered, because it's all, how much exposure to panels, and you've got like 1 million times more exposure to panels than I have, so I can't.
We've cleaned over 9 million panels in the clean solar solution.
So
mainly,
that's
mainly on rooftops. We've done lots of amounts in the past, in the early days. We've also got experience of cleaning floating solar, which is, again, another very interesting topic, which we'll discuss another day.
You see that in China a lot.
So the whole testing of panels, I've been down that route. And the other thing is you can have live roofs that you're stood on without realizing they're live as well. So if you're on a metal sheet roof and you've got a broken DC cable that's sheared in two, and that DC cable is touching the roof, and I've got a plethora of photos, and we use some of the photos in the ISCA training. This is the whole point of the ISCA training, is the photos that we've accrued as Clean Solar Solutions.
Wow.
My knowledge, we use these photos in the training to say, look, this was a live roof. We didn't know about it because we were wearing the correct boots. But if we're stood on there with our sneakers, it's going to melt our sneakers. We see people walking around, as you call it in Australia, in thongs. I hope to God I never see anybody walking around in a thong on a roof in America. It'd be a totally different topic.
Yes.
I don't want to see Kevin Hargis walking around in a thong on a roof.
Mental picture, not pleasant.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all. So the whole PPE thing for me is much more viable.
No, I submit. I submit. It's I'm tapping out.
Yeah, it's a discussion.
It's a great conversation to have me as with a prima facie position, which is the opposite, and then you being able to say, well, this is what's happened to me personally, and this is what I've seen, and then it kind of proves that the PPE makes sense. I mean, we looked into, because as you know, we've got a factory in China, we can source in China. And some of the things we source, we've got a whole new brand coming out, which is just source, at plus agent cost, because some of the stuff is just overpriced and with margin. So we can look at the dielectric boots and PPE and stuff, and because I totally agree with what you're saying.
In solar cleaning, it's unavoidable, and with Mike Draper, it's one of the first things that me and Mike sort of discussed in depth together. Mike was like, Steve, you're just going straight to PPE, and PPE can't be the catch-all. And I'm like, But when you understand how a solar array works, and I went through it with
Yeah.
Mike over
Yeah.
lunch,
Yeah.
we did it
Yeah.
actually in the Trump in Vegas. He took me out for lunch there, and it was a great conversation. And by the end of the conversation, a
Yeah.
safety trainer of Mike's experience was like, "Okay, I get it. We need the
Yeah.
PPE."
No,
It's like,
totally.
yeah,
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
unavoidable. So so
All right.
it's an interesting conversation. I don't know how long we've been going at this, but we've been going at this a while, okay? And I feel we could probably go at it for another while. So let me
Right.
just wrap up with a couple of questions. Um, when people talk about Perry Tait after you are gone,
Yeah.
wherever you may end up going, a lot of people
Yeah.
say you're going to one place, but
Yeah. I know.
but when you've left this planet and your legacy is left behind, what would you actually like people to say about you? What do you think your legacy should be, and what do you think it will be?
Listen to my sons.
Okay.
Don't worry about what I think. The people that know me best are my boys,
Okay.
and what they know is who I am.
Okay. Good
Yep.
answer. So that's
Yep.
which part of the question is that? Is that what it should be, or is that what you want it to be?
That's what
Because
I
there's
wanted to
two
be.
questions. That's what you
Yeah.
wanted to be. So what
You
do
know,
you think it should be then?
no. I mean, that's what it should be from one sense, but from an industry perspective, from a what's written on my gravestone kind of perspective, from an industry gravestone or whatever they call that thing, which people go when somebody's passing. What they did. It's just that I had a go at making the window cleaning industry more efficient, and I was proven right by the number of people that copy the number of things that I did.
Yeah.
I
And
broke the rules. I got
Yeah.
argued with. I got told I'm an idiot. I got told I'm a piece of shit, and
Yeah.
I still do, as you saw the other day. I don't know. Maybe you didn't.
I didn't
Duncan
actually know,
McLeod
but
no, Duncan McLeod's got a podcast going out, and he published it in one of the American channels, and they go, all these guys, Perry Tait's a piece of shit, and I go,
yeah.
I don't mind that at all, from their perspective. But I had a go, and the people who those people respect copied me, and line by line through my product range, line by line, 5 years after I've done all the R&D, after I've gone through all the pain, after I've gone through all the failures, all the breakages, all everything, and I get it right, then they copy me. So I can categorically say now, after 15 years, 16 years in the industry, that I've changed the way windows are cleaned. I've educated that windows can be cleaned faster. I've got some new videos that I've got designed to educate what's happening when you're cleaning a window, what's happening when a brush is on a window, what's happening when you're using a pole, what's happening for force against the glass, like the real science of window cleaning. And I'll put that out, sometime in the next month. And then that's my contribution to the industry. And we don't patent very much. We have design patents, obviously, on everything, from the factory point of view. But I don't try. I really believe Seth, who's the super duper entrepreneur? Seth Godin. Yeah. He said, look, anybody can copy me as long as they improve it. I don't care. But when you just copy what I did, you're not adding value. You're just taking revenue from me. So I think, I make products that help window cleaners clean windows faster, and other guys copy my products so they don't lose sales to me, because the word gets out that we can clean windows faster. So the only way they don't do it because they want windows cleaners to clean faster. They want to do it for their own reseller revenue point of view, or holding the loyalty of their followers and stuff like that. And that's life, that's business, and I don't care, because my life is so perfect, that I can't. I'm not greedy. I'm not money oriented. I just, enough is enough for me. One bed, 5 motorbikes, one house, one woman, one toilet, one shower. Enough is enough, right? But
we're the
most simple, I'm allowed more.
Most simple, complicated men you'll ever hope to meet. So the last question is, And you can think of this on a macro scale of window cleaning, solar cleaning, or you can blow it up into big real world issues. You can cover sociology, you can cover religion, you can cover economics, you can cover politics. What's the one thing that Perry Tait thinks that we should all be talking about, but we're not?
The oil reserve in America.
Okay.
Right now, today,
Mm-hmm.
is the potential, which Trump has done his very best to avoid, but it may be too late to do it. The potential of a massive economic downturn, which will affect us all chronically. It'll affect all industries chronically, especially service industries. It won't affect those of us, those. So it won't affect us from the customer base that we have are lean towards the highly professional, highly desiring efficiency, so more technical business owners and window cleaners who understand efficiency and want efficiency and are prepared to pay the price for a tool that delivers efficiency. So those guys have got Class A customers, own the homes outright, own their mansions outright, have got $1 million in the bank. Those people, those customers are never going to be affected. They're always going to get the windows cleaned. But the guy who's working in demographic CD territory with mortgages, kids at school, stuff like that. I mean, already the inflation issue is rising again, and usually it's way more than what they declare. So it's 3.8% at the moment, and I think very much So what are we? We're now middle of June 2026, right? Just so that this is dated. This comment, right now the oil and oil derivative products like fertilizers, helium, gas, jet fuel, that crisis is hidden from the average person, and they don't understand the effect of it. Now, what do you do? A lot of my friends go, we don't care, I've got my little area, and if it happens, it happens, and I'll work on it. But for me, I always try and think in advance and say, okay, well, we have to have a plan B. Where are we going to pivot? How are we going to pivot? What can we do if that happens? How do we prepare ourselves so that we have a plan B to turn to, or a way to deal with, whatever it is that strips the middle class of their disposable income, which may be the geopolitical global elite game, is to strip the middle class, right? So the middle class is our industry's customer base. The commercial work will go from once a year to once every 2 years. It still needs to be cleaned. They know that, but they'll basically all commercial business will halve. And I've been through this. Like at 64, I've already been through this with 2008, 1998, 1997, 98. And for example, when we had the crash of 98, I was in Australia selling accounting systems, I think, 87, that one. I was selling accounting systems, and we used to give credit, and then we used to sell accounting systems. So I was going in and out of businesses all the time, and then the cash dried up, and it trickled. The big companies didn't pay those companies, didn't pay those companies, didn't pay those companies. By the time it got to the SMEs that I'm dealing with, that was a period of time, 4 to 6 months later, that all of a sudden people's accounts went from 30 days to 90 days, right? So they're used to getting that revenue in, and all of a sudden their creditors. So anybody who's running, I'll also say this, anybody who's running credit accounts, keep them tight and don't deliver services. If you're a 30-day account, then if they can't pay on 30 days, don't deliver your service. Go and find another customer, make sure you get paid, because there's a lot of people who go bust based on somebody can't pay you because somebody didn't pay them because somebody didn't pay them. It's not that they're not going bust because they have a bad business. They're going bust because they give credit.
Yeah. No.
Our company, we never give credit. We just don't give credit. So what's in the bank is in the bank. It's ours, Yeah. We pay our bills on time.
That's the safest way. Yeah. I mean, I nearly went bankrupt. I've nearly been bankrupt 3 times. I was 2 weeks away from bankruptcy twice, but the first time was when the solar business was very much in its infancy, and it was over like £13,000. What's that? 18,000 US, whatever that is in Australian. But at that time, in the infancy of the building of the business, that was everything, you know.
That was everything.
So I survived that, and then my other stories are stories for another day. But yeah, I think that you've got to watch your credit control and watch how much you're giving folks on for how you're giving it to them for.
It's a very, very serious time right now.
Yeah, no, I think there's many things. I mean, I could talk for hours just on my take of the world right now, and I never really voiced it too publicly, but I think that there are many things that are off center that I think if the everyday person understood, they would be as worried about certain topics as I am.
Me too.
And they're big world topics, you know. They're not
they're
not the price of
geopolitical.
Gas in California. They are big geopolitical issues. So yeah, Perry, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel I need to get on a plane and come and see you in Thailand and shoot the shit with you over there for some time. So yeah, no, it's been great conversation. Thank you very much for your time and for your insights. I'm sure that at some point in the future we will get our heads together and talk some more. I hope that as viewers you've enjoyed watching this episode of ISCA TV. Perry, give out your contact details and websites to people. Just give people the last blast, as it were, of who you are and what it is that you do.
Great. So futureofcleaning.com, that's the only thing anybody needs to find. And then if you want to contact me, the WhatsApp is on the top. It's a +66 number. I live in Thailand, so sometimes people get confused by that, but it's a +66 number. And then anybody who wants direct contact with me, there's a live chat there, but the best way is to get hold of me, and it's +66 WhatsApp number, and click through. And I've stayed on live chat for the whole 16 years of the business. I love the front-facing part of the business. I get so much feedback and so many ideas of what people would do if they could do, you know. So yeah, that's probably the easiest thing. You know, we've got a YouTube channel, Reach It Workshop, you know, as well, with 100 videos, which are all technical, which you'd probably geek out on, you know.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, Perry, no, thank you for what you've done for our industry in the window cleaning industry. That's where I originally started. So I understand the window cleaning world very well. Ran a window cleaning company for 26 years. And there was an overlap into. So I know what you're thinking. He's not old enough. I know that's exactly what you're thinking. But I am old enough. I actually, next week, will be celebrating 30 years of running my own businesses. So I set up my business the day after I left school at 16 years old. And I've been running my own thing since. So it's a big milestone. We will be celebrating somewhere in Vegas for that. But thank you for what you've done for the window industry.
Great.
Thank you for the developments that you continue to make for the solar panel cleaning industry. I'll be watching carefully your product launches and heavily criticizing you when I feel that I can and when I feel that you need it.
Welcome. But, it's always uncomfortable.
It's
always uncomfortable, but it leads to change, right? It's
absolutely.
You know, the negative feedback, I soak it up, and you know, the little heart in me gets hurt, but all that. But I go, no, this is the shit. This is what makes better products, right?
Absolutely. And and again, thank you very much for your time this morning, your time, and this evening, my time. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Perry.
Thanks, Steve. Well, thanks for the chance too. Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.